Hey guys and gals, you are watching Boomer TV and the Video Game Factory. I'm Andy Asher, and I think everybody has some kind of a story to tell. Now, here is my hunch. We may dream of writing our story, but something seems to hold us back. Maybe it can feel overwhelming, but my guest today makes it seem, very, very doable. Let's find out if becoming an author is something to fear or not. I will talk to Gen LaGreca about how she was able to pivot careers to be a full-time author. Her fourth book, Just the Truth it's called, has just come out on Amazon. Our show is serious, it's fun, it's quirky with cooking segments, and because I'm hooked on video games, we do the show here in my playroom. Now lately I have been absorbed by the amazing game Journey, which you can see behind me here, where I explore an ancient mysterious world and I soar above the ruins and I glide across sands with stunning visuals and a Grammy-nominated musical score. Meantime, on Friday's show, we're going to have Dr. Charles Garfield. He talks about why some of the most profound growth of our lives happen after age 60. And I like the sound of that a lot. And a lot of exciting things happening. We are live on many platforms right now, including Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and bloomerboomer.com. Now, I do have one huge request from you. If you are into what we are doing, like us and follow us and share us on social media and check us out at bloomerboomer.com to hear more about what's happening. And in the meantime, hey, let's get started. And I love marmalade. Well, Gen LaGreca, I am really, really excited you are here today. Well, let me just ask you this. How are you managing the circumstances that we are living in today?
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me. Well, I'm a writer, so the circumstances haven't been all that much different for me because I have my office in my home and I was actually able to finish writing a play. That was my assignment for the quarantine period. And I'm very pleased to say that I finished it last week and I entered it in a contest.
Good for
So I was
you.
determined to do something, a creative project during the quarantine.
That's a great idea. I didn't quite manage that, but I did finish two books that I've been wanting to do. So trying to make our time worthwhile, right?
Right, right. And we're easing up here. So I'm starting to go out, got my hair done the other day.
Great.
Happy about
You
that.
look fantastic. Tell us your journey into becoming an author. Did you study hard? Did you enroll in English and writing classes? Tell us a little bit about that background.
Well, actually, I was a pharmaceutical chemist, Andy.
Oh,
I have a degree in chemistry from an engineering school, and I wasn't quite fulfilled with the lab work and the technicality of it all. So I went back to school, to graduate school, and I majored in philosophy, thinking that I wanted something more humanistic and idea oriented. But that was too abstract for me. So I ended up being a management consultant. And when I was writing video training programs for employees, I was working in the food service industry. I realized that my plots, my video scripts were becoming more and more plot oriented. And I finally had a client say to me, Jen, I can't have romance in this video about restaurant sanitation. So
what a great idea! Yeah.
that was actually a turning point for me because I related that to a friend, and a friend said to me, why don't you try writing fiction? And it seemed as if I was in St. Louis and I wanted to get to Atlantis. How do I get there? It just was nothing that I knew anything about. And so that was a turning point for me. I started writing novels and I've never looked back. I have four novels now. So I found this passion in my life later in life.
Yeah,
And I've pursued it
that
and
is so
very
neat.
happy I did.
I just don't know if I have a novel inside of me,
Hmm.
I have to still search myself for that. That to me is the ultimate. If you can pull a novel out, but don't, no reason to put barriers up already, right?
Uh, Correct, correct. And you can certainly write a nonfiction book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did that, and maybe my next one is a novel. We'll see. But what was it like for you, deciding to become a serious writer? Did it feel at all overwhelming? Thinking about yourself, maybe, this might be overstating it, but in the same breath as the great American authors.
It was overwhelming, and it took me. My first novel was Noble Vision, but it was so complicated a story that I couldn't finish it. And I actually put it down and wrote a science fiction story in place of it, which was my third published novel, Fugitive from Asteron, is actually the first novel I finished. But after I finished that one, which was a simpler story with no real subplots to it, I was able to pick up Noble Vision and I was able to finish it. And that became my first published novel. I had gone through a rejection of, I don't know, dozens and dozens of agents back in around 2003 when the gatekeepers were still there and the American dream was not available to many writers. And then Amazon came and they opened up self-publishing, and they opened up an avenue for the author to directly sell to the customer without going through bookstores or the agents, which are the key to getting into the five or so key publishers. And so all of a sudden the world was open. And now I believe that self-published books constitute something like 30% of the market.
Wow.
And there's a great tradition in America of self-published books. For example, Ben Franklin was the author and publisher of Poor Richard's Almanac, and Thomas Paine, his great pamphlets, Common Sense and The Rights of Man, were self-published. So we had this great American tradition, but somehow it became more complicated and there were gatekeepers and you couldn't get through. And Amazon, I think, opened the doors for us writers to be able to realize and participate in the American dream.
What a great message about gatekeepers. I know that the publishing industry, with a lot of other print industries, has suffered. But I think that point you made about gatekeeper and giving the opportunity now that we can all publish through Amazon, that's a great message. And as someone who's done a lot of writing, in my case, my writing is news primarily,
Mhm.
and I've evolved since then because there's a lot of difference in how you write news and journalism and all that as opposed to some of the other things. But that's another discussion. But I think my very first awakening of what it meant to be a serious writer is to have an editor. Now I don't know if how you've experienced that, but how has the editor role fit into your journey?
That was extremely critical to me. And I had an editor for all of my books. One thing I promised myself that I would always be professional. Everything I would do and put out to the public would be professional. And so I did have a professional editing of all of my novels. And the important thing for me was to find an editor, which I did, who would keep my voice, who understood that the novel was my voice, and to make my voice enhanced. And I was very fortunate to find some excellent editors. I found them over the internet
Wow, two
just by
great.
exploring.
Really,
Yeah.
two great messages there. You want to find someone who understands your voice and your message, and then how you discover them. So I think those are two great lessons for all of us to learn. It's something I've noticed though, and it's not too remote because we all know this. But if you're semi-famous, it seems the road to financial success anyway comes a little easier. But if you're an everyday person, it's a little different, isn't it?
It really is. I like to think I have best reading novels.
Well,
they
that makes sense. Yeah, I like that idea. Uh-huh.
they have two of my three novels have been Amazon bestsellers, and the one that all the agents rejected went on to win uh, five book awards. So, so it proved itself. However, it is a struggle. And I would say if you want to really make a lot of money writing, I'm not sure that I know how to do that or can advise that. But there are a lot of other reasons to write and a lot of other gratification from it besides maybe having a modest income, although some indie authors do quite well. But you also can have the satisfaction of getting your word out to a select audience that might not be in the millions, but it might be in the thousands, and that might be enough to give you satisfaction.
I think that's
So
perfect. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great message that I think we should all remember. That uh, money is nice, but there are
Yeah.
other forms of satisfaction you can get out of what you're doing. Now, so you're talking about, I think maybe a semi-serious writer or a serious writer, not just a hobby or pastime.
Mhm.
How in the world does someone make it to where they can call themselves a professional writer or author? I guess it's all just a real individual sort of a decision or a feeling or a goal to have.
It's interesting, Andy. There were two aspects to what I did. Was one was publishing, which is a business, and for that I went through the proper channels. I went through the Independent Book Publishers Association, which is the national association for indie authors who publish or small publishers, and I went through their publishing university. So I learned how to become a publisher through those channels. But for the writing, I was very much independent regarding the writing. I actually didn't want to go to writing schools because I felt there were too many arbitrary rules and regulations, and I didn't want to corrupt my talent. So I ended up learning what I mean by that. For example, there could be a rule that you have to have dialogue within the first 3 pages of your novel. Well, I can give you a novel that the great Victor Hugo wrote, where there was no dialogue for the first 50 pages because there was a little boy alone on a beach. And or The Clan of the Cave Bear, the famous novel by Jean Auel, where a girl is alone after her an earthquake or something separates her from her tribe, and so there can't be dialogue. So that's what I mean by artificial rules. And I didn't want to have that. So what I did was I studied great novelists that helped me. Or opera, I go to the opera a lot, or TV shows and series. I'm a plot writer, so I watch a lot of murder mysteries. And I would just outline for myself, the plots of the stories I liked and how they built up suspense. And I think I learned from people who were doing it and doing it well. That
Boy,
was
you
the route I took. I have books full of my analysis of different novels and TV series, etc.
you did it in a very studious way. That sounds like and I hope that people who watch this today learn from that because you're sharing some really important lessons. And there are so many authors, that I. Okay, so as I told you, I wrote a book. It's a shorter book. It's a nonfiction book, and it's something that I learned a lot about uh, by just searching the internet. And the way it all works is that there's a little key on there that comes back to your Facebook page and all that, and it knows you're looking for information on writing. So that's a long intro into there are a lot of offers being thrown out. And when it comes known that you want to write, how do you separate what those the good ones and maybe the not so good ones?
As I said, I didn't take any formal classes,
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
guess
not
you have to
sure.
use your judgment and what feels good and listen to you. Also, talk a little bit, about the digital space, like Amazon, and then the good old hard copy books.
Oh, yeah, because, for example, if you sell a book for $3.99 on Kindle, and Kindle is where I sell the majority of my books, audience will probably take a chance on a new writer for the price of a Starbucks coffee. And there are voracious Kindle readers out there, and there are ways to advertise to them, etc. And I've sold thousands of books to voracious Kindle readers. And so I get a 70% royalty if I'm on Amazon or even Smashwords. You know, there are other outlets now for ebooks. You could be on all of them, Apple Books, etc. And you get a 70% royalty. So I'm making about $3 for a book that people will buy from an author they don't know for $3.99. Whereas if you go the publishing route and you have a paperback or a hardcover, say it's $30 a copy instead of $3.99, you'll still make it. You'll make probably a 10% royalty from that. You know, you have to pay your agent, and you'll make a between a 10 and 15% royalty. So you might make the same $3 even though you have a hardcover book. So you can still make a really good royalties having inexpensive Kindle books.
Yeah. How do
Yes,
you
interesting.
how do you from a time standpoint and everything? How do you pivot to a new career later in life? Tips for how to write a novel and then maintain a full time job. How do you know and when you're ready to quit your day job? Tips for others wanting to self publish their book.
Oh, I did that for years. I was having a day job and writing as well. For me, the hours in the morning were the most productive. You know, everyone's different and their bodies are, some people are night people. I'm an early person. And those hours from 5 in the morning to 7, before I just grab a cup of coffee, get up early, those 2 hours in the morning uninterrupted were so valuable to me. I got so much done. And then 7 o'clock, I could just start my normal day, shower, have breakfast, go to work. And weekends too. But I'd say those 2 hours in the morning before you do anything else. So somebody might try that, or maybe a late night approach might be better. But I'd say uninterrupted time is really key.
Yeah, indeed. Now, I know you have a website. Can you talk
Mm.
about that a little bit?
Yes, I just had that redesigned. I'm very happy with it. It's called it's wingedvictorypress.com. Winged Victory, as in that beautiful statue in the Louvre, the Winged Victory, which is so beautiful and uplifting. It's like the noble and ideal in art. And I was hoping that I could give the noble and ideal in books that were inspirational. So I chose this beautiful statue and that name for my company.
And
It was
then,
really fun.
yeah, and then your book. Talk, if you would, a little bit about that.
Yes, actually, it has a boomer relationship in it, which I'll talk about. It's called Just the Truth. And it's about a newswoman who she suspects foul play in an upcoming bid for President Ken Martin, fictitious president's upcoming bid for reelection. She suspects foul play, and she has a high level source within the administration who is suddenly murdered just when he has some important information for her on this new election system they have that they're going to be using for the reelection. And everyone's saying that his murder is a random street crime, but she doesn't think so. So she's off, and she feels the full impact of a crushing retaliation of an administration that's abusing power against her personally and against her family businesses. They're a corporate, they're a conglomeration of media company, a sports company, etc. And all of a sudden, some very bad things start happening to their companies, and she feels enormous pressure from her family and to give up this investigation. But she goes on, and I think she's in the great tradition of independent thinking. And her grandfather, who started the company in the mid 1950s, he was the one who influenced her the most. So here we have a boomer who was able to influence a grandchild who, during changing times, her family didn't feel that journalism was such a great calling, or you had to give up everything to pursue the truth at any cost. They were much more pragmatic and conciliatory. But she always stuck with what her grandfather told her, and his motto to her was, find the truth wherever it hides. So,
That's good advice, and I'm
yeah.
a very visual person, so as you're describing that, I almost see a movie coming.
Ah,
We always hope, right? Any
that would be great.
any final takeaways? I mean, you've given us some invaluable advice and ideas. Anything that someone can take away and maybe take a step closer to that first novel?
Andy, I would say these are the most exciting years of my life. That boomers who have perhaps more time, they don't have to be building their careers. The sky is the limit to do whatever you want. Don't dream too small, and give yourself some pleasures in life too. I have a friend, she's 80 years old, she still mows her own lawn, and she can afford to have it mowed for her. So give yourself some pleasures and indulgences. Join a wine club or have someone mow your lawn. Warren Buffett, Warren, the Warren Buffett, the
Yeah,
big,
sure, of
yeah,
course. Uh huh.
he had, someone once asked him, what are the things that are different between the way you live and an ordinary person lives? And he said there were really only two differences. One is I can pay someone to mow my lawn, and the other is I can fly in a private jet. So, in other words, there was no difference between what he could do and what we could do in life.
I think there's a ton of
So,
truth to that. Yeah,
yeah.
it really is. Okay, I'm going to get right back to you. I just want to give a brief update on my journey in the game, and I just started this particular event, this particular game today. Now I played it a lot, but this one, it generally takes about 2 hours. So I just started it. It's as you can see, I took a few tumbles, and I still haven't gotten near to any of the structures that where I'm going to explore. So I'll be continuing on after Jen and I are done here. But it's been a fun game, and it's called Journey, and it's a beautiful game. It has great music, and great visuals, a lot of things to offer. So just to give you a little bit of information on it, you can check it out. Jen, it's been great.
Andy, it's a pleasure, and I thank you so much for what you're doing for boomers.
It's been fun. It's a
It's
lot of fun.
great.
Good,
You're
good.
helping all of us to really tap into our potential and lead a much more satisfying life.
Exactly. There's so much to live for, and there's so many things to do, and you've given us some great examples. So, thank you, Gen LaGreca, and your fourth book, Just the Truth. You can watch the replay of our show on Facebook, YouTube, and on bloomerboomer.com. And until then, so long, and I love marmalade.
Thank you. I do.